Yeah.
All right, guys, here we go. We are in I always get the weeks wrong, so I'm going to say week 14, I guess. Flying High with the Birds, Philadelphia Eagles Talk Podcast. This is the Godfather speaking. With me today are the Armenian Hammer.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing?
I don't know if you know this, young Gary, but he is the hammer. He lays the hammer down when he doesn't like something that's going on. The podcast chaplain, Jimmy, what's up?
What's up, guys? What's going on?
And finally, we don't have Will Seal the Deal Sealy today. He's busy. I believe he's doing Christmas shopping. In his place is young Gary, or the psychiatrist, young Gary. Gary, I just wanted to tell you, I went to my cardiologist today, and my cholesterol reading, my total reading was a 150. So I know you would be real happy about that.
I'm excited. Despite the disparity from here to down here, I still appreciate a lower cholesterol number.
So, well, listen, I got this going. Now I got to get working up here. So that's where you might really be able to help me.
Doesn't everyone nowadays?
Yes. All right, let's get cracking here. Eagles win. There's not much more I can say because most of the people, all two people watch this podcast, will agree that they don't really need to know all the details because they normally do. So I'll just give you the quick facts. Eagles win 35-10. They're now 12-1. We got three guys that already have 3 touchdowns apiece, Hurts, Sanders, and A.J. Brown. Miles Sanders runs for 144 yards. He now has 1,000 yards altogether. He's going to be looking for a big contract next year. But let me start with you, Jimmy, because you were so excited about this, and you're going back and forth on Sunday with how excited you were. Tell me what you thought.
Well, first of all, I look like a fool. I was the one who picked the Giants to win the game.
I didn't want to say that until the very end.
You got to own up. You got to own up.
Now that you said it, now you're going to have to own up to it and suck it up.
But that would be just wow. Just wow. Like I said earlier, their offense is like a video game. It's unstoppable. It's unstoppable. And the touchdown to Devontae Smith, then the very next play on offense, they go right to A.J. Brown. It was unreal. The one question I have is, what was that safety thinking on the Devontae Smith touchdown to put him up 14-0? I've never seen a safety look like a fool like that.
Well, you know what's interesting about that play? If you look at the replay of that play, he was going for the pick. He thought it was going to go over his head and he was going to intercept it. That was 4th down. So let's say that Smith would not have touched it and he would have picked it off. They would have had the ball 30 yards further down the field. That was completely stupid. I think it was that guy Love. I believe
Yes.
did that.
Mm-hmm.
He went over to the sideline, and I think the defensive coordinator, I think his name's Wink Martindale, he went and talked to him. And I will bet my life that he just told him, like, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Put it down. Don't go for the interception. Hit the guy.
I thought Devontae was going to be in concussion protocol.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
what a
tell you.
safety waits for.
Well, I'll tell you, he played that great. He covered so much ground on that. I'm talking about Love, the safety, and then he just completely blew it by going for the pick.
Yep.
So,
But actually, if you pay attention, Devontae Smith, he lowered his hand. When he got the ball, he lowered his hand and stopped. The guy passed by him and kept running.
yeah.
I mean, talk about the concentration at that speed, It was really amazing.
Well, if you also look at it this way, I mean, it ended up being a very tight window because, he threw it barely over the D-back's head. And I'm assuming that the safety was bracket covering Smith on that play. He dropped a dime. I mean, it was really right there, but it was also
then he
in
kept
a place,
going.
Right. It was in a place where he could have really got hit pretty good, you know? So, but young Gary, I mean, give me your thoughts of what, even though you spent a lot of time in Washington, and I know you're probably going to be a Washington Commanders fan. I don't want to hear.
Nah, don't pull that on me right now.
All right. I'm not going to do that, but just give me your thoughts on the game.
So I have to say, I'm not saying that I thought the Eagles were going to lose, but after that unfortunate Commanders game, I can see where the pessimism might have come through with Eagles might have dropped in some because you have Saquon and then the Eagles within recent weeks, obviously without Jordan Davis, they've just been a funnel for the run game. And I was kind of nervous about that with Saquon, even though he was 50-50 coming in with his neck. You don't know if he's actually good or it's
Good
just
point.
they're just saying he's healthy and he's actually just held together by glue stick, you
Yeah.
know. But overall, Eagles just proving that they're probably one of the most complete teams in the NFL. I mean, they just showed it that they can drop a dime to deep play to a receiver, or they can just run it on the ground. And something you want to look at 2017, they had that same ability. Granted, it wasn't one bell cow running back. They were still able to advance the ball via running or passing. And that's something we got to really see in the Eagles game, and it was exciting to see with the Giants.
I agree. I got to ask you this. Are you getting all your football knowledge from your father? Or is this all like, self-grown here?
You know, a little bit of A, a little bit of B.
Yeah.
No, it's getting from Reddit.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what it is. But, I mean, honestly, let's look at this, and I'll just open it up to the group. Let's start with let's forget the coaches for a second. But, if you look at the players, there's a major difference if you look at all the position groups. And I think the Eagles had it over them in every single position group, except possibly the defensive line. But Williams was out for the Giants, which was a big loss for them. But I still think that their defensive line was almost as good as the Giants' defensive line. But if you look player by player, there's a disparity between the talent of both teams. Don't you guys agree?
Oh, absolutely. It's like a JV versus a varsity. I mean, it wasn't.
It's crazy. It's crazy the Giants even have the record they have, let alone the Commanders as well.
Yeah. No. Well,
crazy. The whole everybody within the playoffs have been started today. The whole NFC East.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, it's amazing. If you look 2 years ago during the COVID year, they were like the worst division almost in NFL history. The whole division was awful. Now they're all really good. I think part of it's the coaching. Like, listen, let's be honest here. Who would have thought that the Giants would have been? They're 7-5-1 right now. That's amazing. Brian Daboll, the new coach, has done a great job with that team. And I give him a lot of credit for it. And he could have won 1 or 2 other games. So they really could have been 9-3 going into the Eagles game last week. And if you look at their team, you're saying, how is this happening? But he's really a very, very good football coach. And I think the Giants can still make the playoffs, even though that they're really starting to get kind of beat pretty good now. And if they could get their injured players back, especially their receivers, I think they'll be okay down the road. But they are still like kind of in the playoff hunt.
Actually, it's really interesting. Every time there's an Eagles game, I usually go online and read the opposing team's local paper, see what they're saying. And for the Giants, everybody's saying that the coach is doing as well as he can do under the circumstances. And they're putting the blame on the general manager for not getting the best players, for the coach. And they're talking about the quarterback. They're saying that guy shouldn't be even starting. They don't even know why he's starting. And most of the picks that they had, they're not really that good. So the coach is doing the best he can under the circumstances. And the problem is with the GM. Maybe he should be fired or something.
It's a fresh start. That's a good point. Now, Jimmy, I got to ask you this because the player, and I can't think of his name. When Devontae Smith was a rookie last year, the Eagles traded up to get him. And I think the Giants wanted him, but they switched picks with Dallas. Dallas ended up getting Parsons, who was a great pickup. The Eagles get Smith. Who did the Giants end up with? That receiver that's now with Kansas City, that's always hurt.
I can't think of his name. I know you're talking.
Kadarius Toney.
There you go.
There
that's why you're on the podcast.
There it is.
The psychiatrist getting it all right there. Yeah, Kadarius Toney. And he's injured all the time. So, I mean, that ended up being a very bad pick. But at the time, I really thought the Eagles were going to grab him if Smith was taken by somebody else. So yeah, you're right. The Giants really kind of got screwed there. So
They panicked. They traded back right after that because they didn't know, or how he traded up, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
he traded up, I think, just a
Because
spot.
he knew the Giants were going to take Devontae, and
Right.
he hopped
Traded
right
up.
over them. Then they didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
You know-
they traded up a spot, but I think didn't the Giants go after the Giants went after the Eagles, I think, right? And they got Tony, and then
Yeah, because the Eagles jumped up. They swapped to Dallas, right?
yeah, and I guess Dallas was next, and they got Parsons. I mean, that really
Yeah.
turned out great for the Eagles and the Cowboys. You
Yep.
know,
It's so funny we're talking about that, the picks. So today I was reading online, I don't know what it is, ESPN or something else. They had the first mock draft for next year, and they're going by the Eagles having the 5th pick. And they're saying that they should pick Bijan Robinson. Now, the reason I know that guy is because he plays for University of Texas, and the coach is Armenian, Steve Sarkisian. So every time University of Texas plays, I always watch that game. That guy is unbelievable. Bijan Robinson.
is he a running back?
Oh yeah, he's a running
He's the
back.
running back.
Yeah, I mean he's a star running back. I mean
Yeah.
he's that offense for Texas. And some people are saying there's no way how we would pick a running back with the 5th pick. And they're saying, well, I mean, if Sanders is going to ask for a lot of money, and it's going to be very hard to get all those free agents. So let Sanders go and pick up Bijan, because he's even better than Sanders, and he could be a game changer. So just it's really interesting that the first mock draft they have the guy from Texas being picked by the Eagles, but he's a stud running back.
More importantly, his head coach is Armenian. I think that's the reason why.
That's the reason I was following it,
Right,
and
that's why-
in the process they get, but he's really good. Bijan Robinson is really, really good.
Right, but running backs aren't really, unless you're extra special. I know this guy's really good, but unless you're extra special, a running back anymore is not drafted in the first round, because normally the average shelf life of a running back is 3 to 4 years tops.
But Elliott's still running, right? I mean,
Yeah, he is, but he's nowhere near the player that he was. But no, you're right. He's still good. But the other position groups are the ones where there's more longevity. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. If they don't have Sanders next year, they're going to need to get somebody else in there, because Boston Scott and the other guy.
Gainwell.
They're just
Gainwell.
not. Yeah, they need more than that. They need a bell cow, and they don't have a bell cow right now. Let's talk about the game Hurts had. 3 weeks in a row. Was he the player of the week again?
I think he was this week, right?
Yes, and he was last week. So
Mhm.
if he was this week, that's 2 weeks in a row, and he's doing it every which way.
He's the MVP of the league.
Yeah, right now I think he could
Has to
be
be.
I think he's got to be the leading guy right now, the guy that's up front.
Betting
every-
wise, he is.
But can you guys tell me that, like, every week I'm seeing something different that he's doing that is like, oh my God, it's almost off the charts. Like, now his anticipation is amazing. To me,
He's
I
surgical.
think,
I mean, he's surgical. He's no nonsense surgical guy. I mean, he's not flamboyant like Mahomes, or he has the arm of Joe Barrow. But man, he's like the perfect fit for the Eagles team. Honest to God. I mean, he's very methodical, no nonsense. By the book. Whatever they give you, that you take that. Don't try to make anything, stupid mistakes, and he just plays within the system.
I'll say this as well about Hurts. Something that you can't really find on a stat sheet, but you kind of get from feeling. You watch him and you're just feeling calm. I mean, I remember watching Carson during 2017, and he dropped back, you're waiting, and he'd pull a rabbit out of a hat. And it's incredible. And we're very blessed for that. But you never really you just felt, oh, is it gonna happen now? Is it gonna happen now? Oh, he gets out of the situation. Hurts, you're just calm the entire time. You're like, let's just sit back, let him do his job, and we're rocking and rolling the whole game. And this has been for the past year. I personally, it's not that I was against Hurts keeping him. Obviously, he's on a rookie contract and everything, but I wasn't sure about what level of elevation he'd make from last year to this year, and it's truly incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. That Colt game, they were down that whole game, and he was so calm and cool on the sideline. He's like, "Don't worry, boys." He's like, "I got this. Let's go." That's what I was like. Wow. I was like, that's who you want.
I agree. He's a leader. I mean,
Mhm.
he's also a leader, and it seems like even when there's pressure and things are going tough, he's still cool, calm, and collective.
And that's what you want out of your leader, your leader and your quarterback.
Yeah, and Vahe, you're talking about like maybe he doesn't have the same arm that the guy in
Mahomes.
Cincinnati has, but I
Yeah,
think his
Joe
arm is
Burrow.
really, I think he's pretty close to Burrow as far as throwing the ball. I think he throws the ball really nice, so I don't know.
Look at this position we're in now. This time last year, we didn't know what we had in him. Now
Yeah. I
now
can
he's,
see now that the way the Bengals are playing, I can see Bengals Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Bengals look good. Burrows looks good.
Yeah, Burrows looks good, and they beat
Jamar
Kansas
Chase
City.
came back for the Bengals too.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, that's a good point. But the more we talk on this podcast, the more deeper the conversations now is getting with what kind of money is he going to demand next year? And this is really going to be, I'll tell you, Howie Roseman has a very, very difficult offseason coming up here. He's got a lot of people that he's got to consider. Like now you got Sanders, who's over 1,000 yards. He rushed for 144, 10. Is it 11 touchdowns now that he has?
He's got at least 10, I think.
Yeah, I think he's got 11. I'm not sure, but I think it's 11. He had none last year. He's not hurt at all. He is going to demand big bucks. I don't know who's going to give him the big money. And plus, he's 25? I think he's 25 years old. So
yeah, I mean that's what
I
they're
don't
saying.
know.
That probably you let him go and get somebody from the draft.
Well, but I don't know who is going to give him real big money to be
Somebody will. Somebody always pays somebody.
Yeah, I don't know. Running backs,
I mean,
normally not too much.
Look at that. Well, actually, I was gonna say Denver, but I remember Javonte Williams. He's been out with ACL. I forgot that because they've had such a crazy rotation of the corpse of Latavius Murray and now Mike Boone, and then who knows next. But I mean, there's always a running back needy team who needs to throw it. Everyone knows the shelf life, so I imagine that might not have his value too high. I can't see the Eagles again, like you're saying, if he asks for a lot of money, I can't see the Eagles re-signing. And I also can't see him, as much as we love to have that all-star running back. I mean, look at Breece Hall, for the Jets and everything.
He's
that was
out
an
for the
incredible
season.
pick.
But he's out for the season.
Unfortunately, with a crazy injury, but some more of a lower round pick to kind of to buoy the running back core. Because again, we can't have just Gainwell and Boston Scott as much as they've improved.
I agree. No, I agree 100%.
You know what? I was looking at the list today before the podcast. I went online and looked at the list of the free agents. Man, they have at least 10, 12 players.
Quality players, too.
Even Fletcher Cox is a free agent. I didn't even know that.
Barnett's one, and they're all impact players too.
Yeah.
So they can't keep everybody happy. It's going to be impossible. Somebody will get offered a lot more money than the Eagles can offer.
Yeah, you know what, Armand, because there's disparity between the talent level. I mean, the Eagles, they have all those players, right? And then you look at the other teams, they're really struggling. So, somebody's going to pay big bucks to get a good running back. Somebody's going to pay big bucks to get a cornerback. Somebody's going to pay big bucks to get a safety. I mean, that's a given. Yeah. And unfortunately, the Eagles cannot compete because they cannot be able to pay everybody, especially if they win the Super Bowl. Yeah,
and the more they win the playoffs, the more he can get. I mean, I personally think he's going to get at least, in the neighborhood of 45. If Kyler Murray's getting 46.1,
can you imagine Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, the two big money guys? They're both out.
And Aaron Rodgers, who really isn't getting it done. And who's the other guy with the big contract that we're missing out on here that's not getting it done? There's another quarterback, and I can't think of who it is.
Well, Lamar Jackson wants to get paid.
Lamar Jackson, right?
He's paid.
And that's the issue down there. They don't want to. I don't think they want to guarantee anything.
Because look at all the money they're giving these other quarterbacks, and they're not producing.
Mm-hmm.
That has a lot to do with it. So right now, Hurts is in a great position, and there's so many reasons. Number one is his coaching staff. Number two is the team that's behind him. Number three is the way he's playing. And number four, and this is the biggest thing, this dude is 24 years old. He is a baby. And he seems like he's light years ahead of, I'll tell you, I saw I go back as far as Randall Cunningham, Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb. He's got it over all of them right now, but all of them, like all the other guys, and even Jaworski, like you always had to put your hands up to your head when they threw it like a pass. They were so talented, but for every great play they made a bad one. Hurts seems to make so many right plays.
Mhm.
And, if there's nothing there, he'll run with the ball. He runs great on the outside, around the edge. He runs good up the middle. He's much better, and I say this every podcast, going to his left right now where he couldn't do that before. I will say this, what worries me a little bit is when they get in the playoffs, and you guys can comment on this, I am worried about that one defensive coordinator that they're going to face in the playoffs that thinks that they have the key to hold him in check. And that, I don't know who that could be, but that's very, very
San
possible.
Francisco. I think San Francisco is legit.
Well,
And
and they got
their
that guy,
defense really-
D'Amico Ryans, and D'Amico Ryans is going to be a head coach one day. And if there is a guy that might be able to do it, it could be him, especially with that defense. I don't know what you guys think.
No,
Well-
I agree. I agree. We've been saying it for the last few weeks, 49ers are the one team that scares us. And, their defense is as good as it gets. And they dodged a bullet, it looks like, with Samuel. They thought he tore an ACL, but
As well
It's
as the
just-
quarterback, too. The third.
Yeah.
It's funny. We're worried about that team, and they're playing with a third string quarterback. Isn't
Yeah,
that
isn't that-
amazing?
he looks good. He
he
looks
does
good.
look good. He really does.
Yeah.
Mr. Irrelevant, too, that he is.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Is that incredible?
7th round pick. They liked him all along, they said.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
See, one of the things that basically ESPN, obviously everybody does the same thing too, but on ESPN on Tuesdays, they have the weekly ranking of the teams. So this week, the Eagles are ranked number 1, and they break it down into 3 categories, right? So they're number 1 in offense, they're number 2 in defense, and then number 20 in special teams. San Fran is number 1 in defense. I think it's number 4 in offense, and it's number 6 or 7 in the special teams.
Who,
they're
that's San
saying that
Francisco?
Yeah, and
I'm
they're saying that it's
surprised-
better to have all those numbers in single digit than
Yeah.
like the Eagles having a 20, because when the playoffs comes around, everything is magnified. So, if
I'm surprised that they're 4 in offense, because I know, like, they only scored 13 points in that game against, I forget who it was. They won 13-0. I forget who it was that they beat a few weeks ago. So they weren't scoring a lot of points. I'm really surprised. Maybe they're getting a lot of yards and not scoring as much in the red zone. I don't know what it is. So real quick, let's go to, I'm going to do a commercial. And before we do the Bears this coming week, I want to just touch on something with the defense. Is your kitchen or bathroom outdated or in serious need of repair? Since 1987, Kitchen World offers the latest in custom, semi-custom, and even stock cabinetry. Our designers offer the absolute best in custom design, right down to the exquisite molding details. That's Kitchen World, with showrooms in Philly, Bucks, and Montgomery County. To set up an appointment, call Burton at 267-228-9875, or check us out at kitchen-worldinc.com. I need to touch base on this, because I'm going to tell you, when I watched that game Sunday, immediately I was looking ahead to 2023. If you guys don't mind, I want to bring up the defensive line, and I just need your guys' opinion on this. As of right now, their defensive line is Derek Barnett. He's out for the season with the knee, and then I think it's an MCL. Second time he's been out for the year, and he's in his late 20s. Brandon Graham having a really good year, but 34 years old and will be 35 this time next year. Fletcher Cox having a much better year this year than he had last year, but I believe he will be 33 or 34 in 2023. Javon Hargrave, who I think is 28, could be 29, having a very good year. And I believe he is a free agent. I think he's one of the guys that they need to sign. Josh Sweat, as far as his contract is concerned, he's fine. He's young. He's having a good year. He will not be going anywhere. Milton Williams, same thing. Only in his second year. To me, he's very average at best. and I think he will only play good with real good players around him. Jordan Davis, rookie, will be here for a while. Hopefully he will be the anchor of that defensive line. Marlon Tuipulotu, out for the season with a knee. And who am I? Oh, the two new guys they just recently picked up, Joseph and Ndamukong Suh, both in their mid-30s. So if you look at this group, they got the two guys I just mentioned at the end. They're in their 30s. Brandon Graham's in his 30s. Fletcher Cox is in his 30s. You got Derek Barnett, who probably won't be.
And
with
they
this team
all
next
are
year.
free agents.
Well, Brandon Graham isn't going to go anywhere else.
He's
I don't-
free agent.
I don't think he'll go anywhere else. I think he'll take a team-friendly deal.
Yeah, I think he sometimes hints like this. He's enjoying everything about this year. Like, I don't know if he knows in the back of his head this is the end or what, but I've heard a couple times on the radio. Just he's like, I just want to enjoy everything about this year because, his days could be numbered.
Yeah, but if you look at the defensive line, who are their edge guys right now?
He's almost got 10 sacks too. I think he's got what, like 8.5?
Who?
Brandon Graham.
I think it's 7.5.
Did he have a couple? Is it
He had 3.
something
He
around
had
there.
3 last week, and that's what really put him up. But right now, your DNs are Graham and Sweat. And the only other edge guy you got is
Hassan Reddick. Doesn't he play?
Hassan Reddick's really a linebacker. So they play a 4-3, and then they'll move him up and make it a 5-3 most of the time. But I'm more concerned about the interior line because you got Hargrave, who should be here. Fletcher Cox is going to be in his mid-30s. Brandon Graham, who's already in his mid-30s. Ndamukong Suh is in his mid-30s. Joseph, he's in his mid-30s. I don't know if any of these guys are going to be with this team next year. So, I stopped at a bar today and talked with a lot of guys that I played softball with. And the prevailing wisdom is the same as what you were saying, Vahe, that they're going to pick a running back in the first round. Defensive line, I mean, everything to me, the line is what, everything goes off of what they do in the offensive and defensive line. I'm very worried about what their defensive line rotation is going to be, especially on the interior this time next year. You guys can comment on that.
I have a different perspective on that, even though, in some ways, them being in the 30s, probably they can come in cheap. And also, I think the difference is that having so many of them, they're playing less snaps and they're staying fresh. I think at the beginning of the season, Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, they were playing like 77% or 80% of the snaps. And that's why they were getting really tired because they're getting old. Now their snap count's down to 40%. I was looking at yesterday, Jeff McClain, he has the numbers, right? So I think Brandon's numbers were like 45% of the snap count. Same thing with Fletcher Cox. So they were all in the less than 50%, and Jordan Davis was like 25%. I think if you keep it within the 50 and less, and you keep rotating them, they stay fresh. And because they're in mid-30s, probably they come with a discount. So I would keep them around for another year and then keep rotating them.
Let me just ask you this. So you're telling me that Cox, Graham, and maybe Barnett may be willing to take team-friendly deals next year? Not
necessarily team-friendly deals, but I don't think they're going to get that much money going somewhere else because they're in the mid-30s.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about the O-line? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I can imagine the Eagles want to prioritize, at least keeping one of them for keeping veteran presence in the locker room.
All right. Now that's a good point. So Gary, you're saying this, that keep one of them, right? Then,
at least one of them.
At least one of them. So chances are Barnett won't be with this team next year. Sue and Joseph probably won't be with this team next year. They need players. They're going to need players. I don't know whether it's going to be a free agent that they're going to sign. And to be honest with you, they're not going to have the money to sign a free agent because of all these contracts that are going to be up for renewal that they're going to try to sign. And then if, in the draft, I don't care if they get a guy in the first round of the draft. Maybe if they like one of the defensive linemen, either Georgia, the guy from Georgia or Alabama, that's really good. But a lot of times these guys don't develop right away in their first year. So I can tell you right now, I think the defensive line could be a cause for concern next year. And I know you guys are not going to admit to this, but, Gannon, I think that the coaches, I think Sirianni has to also look at his coaches. He has a few coaches that might be up for bigger positions next year, like his offensive coordinator, his defensive coordinator. So
yeah, he might lose two of them. He's definitely going to lose one of them. You would think. He might
and
lose
even
both.
that quarterback coach, they think could be. Well, you know what? They were discussing today that if Steichen does go somewhere else, if he becomes a head coach, that maybe the quarterback coach can call the plays because he's very much part of the play calling. And I cannot think of what his name is, but he's the guy that actually worked with Hurts all along. But getting back to it, besides the coaches possibly leaving next year, I'm very concerned about what the defensive line rotation will be this year. So, Vahe, you're talking about all these different guys. They get less snaps and all. Yeah, that's fine. Are they all going to be here next year? We don't know. I mean, it wasn't good enough during the season, and that's why they got Sue and Joseph, right? I mean,
So that was the thing about, when they were talking about this mock draft today, and I think the guy's name is McShay.
yeah,
And he was saying that go with the running back because that's really critical. That's one thing they're gonna miss. So somebody was saying that no way they were gonna with an interior lineman with the first 5 picks or whatever.
that's amazing. I can't believe he said that. Really?
No, he didn't say that. People were commenting about it, saying that there's no way Roseman is gonna pick a running back with the top 5 pick.
Yeah. I thought you meant that.
And somebody else was saying that let's go with the running back for the 5th pick and go with an edge rusher with the 32nd pick. And they mentioned somebody's name from, I think it was from Clemson or something.
Yeah, there's some good players available on the defensive line and a couple good running backs too.
But to be honest with you, I mean, the thing is, and besides, Hurts being a free agent, I think on the offensive side, since the line's still intact, I think a cheap running back would be really, really good complementing for everything else they have. I think if you look beyond Sanders, I think that's one of the weakest links on the offensive side, a good stud running back.
Yep.
Well, yeah, they don't have a LeGarrette Blunt type running back right now. And they're not growing on trees right now. So
and you don't want Hurts to keep running either. I mean, if he has to run, yes, but you don't want him to make a habit out of it.
I agree 100%. Let's go to this week's game with the Bears real quick. Bears have a losing record. They lost 3 straight. However, they're fresh because they had a bye last week. This game is in Chicago. Vahe, what is the line telling you?
The line time, it's going to be another blowout. It's -9. The team is coming off a bye at home and still minus 9.
Wow.
The Eagles are -9.
The Eagles are on the road, like you said.
It's on the road, and the second game on the road.
Wow.
If there's going to be any trap game, this is supposed to be the trap game because
they got
between
Dallas
the Giants
next week.
and Dallas.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, you have that on their calendars. So this will be the trap game if there was any one of them.
Yeah, and let me say this. I know that Dallas, everyone's saying they should have lost to Houston last week. Houston did play their butts off in that game. And that literally was Dallas's trap game. You know that Dallas is going to play much better than that on Christmas Eve against the Eagles.
But they lost one of their tackles, right? They lost their left tackle or right tackle?
Right tackle. He's out for the season. Yeah, which is a very big loss for them. Now, speaking of that, let's talk about the Eagles' injuries. Reed Blankenship with the knee, but luckily they said it's only a strained knee. They think he'll be back before the end of the season. The punter, Sipos, I don't know how long he's going to be out, but they signed a punter, and I don't remember the guy's name, but he was a 3-time Pro Bowler, which is good. Lane Johnson looks like he tweaked something in one of his ribs, but they believe he's going to be okay.
Yeah, they said he could have come back if they needed him till last week. So it sounds minor.
Yeah, that's good. And I guess we'll know by tomorrow if Goddard's going to be activated for this game.
Mm-hmm.
So
he can come back. That's right.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Now they're going to have 4 tight ends on the roster. One of them is going to have to go back on the practice squad, I would assume, and that's going to be that guy that Harry Roseman loved last year, that Tyree Jackson guy.
Does he
So,
play?
Boy,
no,
Just
he
boy.
hardly played, but I got to tell you, the other two Calcaterra looked really good. What about that block he had
Mhm.
when at the near the end of the game when Sanders had that 40-yard run? That was beautiful, that block, and he had a couple nice catches too. He's a big presence in there, that guy. And Stoll still looks pretty good too. So, I don't like young Gary. I don't know if you know much about this Bears team, but I know you're going to say about the running ability of the quarterback. Do you think that's going to be an issue for the Eagles defense?
It's difficult because, well, I'm trying to remember what kind of crazy run defenses that Fields kind of went up against where he kind of proved, because only recent thing in memory is that they were able to run up on Green Bay, which of all the seasons, this is the one that means the least in, and they still were able to just have the hobbled Aaron Rodgers come back on them and like end up winning. So
Yeah.
obviously the offense runs through Fields, and I think at least as far as his game goes, as much as we were able to contain him with the defensive line, and that's just where it's going to end. It's going to start and end. I mean, Darnell Mooney, their number one receiver, is out for the season.
Yes, that's
And
big. That's
Mhm.
big. He's a very good receiver. Yeah, that's
I
a good
think
point.
I think the other aspect is, at least as far as offensive threats, I know I think Khalil Herbert. So they have this kind of 1-2 running back
Yeah.
tandem where you have David Montgomery as the kind of proverbial bell cow, and then you have Khalil Herbert as a change of pace. And Khalil Herbert, he can step up in his own right. He's not some slouch. And as far as receiving threats, they have Cole Kmet, which people at least have been talking about. Oh, the Fields Kmet connection and whatnot.
Wow.
But I think if we're able to at least contain the running game and just able to defend the tight end, I don't think the Eagles really have much to worry about. Knock on wood, of course, but
That's a great point. And I got to tell you, the way you're talking, when Will comes back next week, seriously, I think maybe we should put your dad on IR, and we should put you in the active four-man roster for the rest of the season.
I should go back
Either
in the practice squad.
Practice squad. We'll put him on the practice squad, I think. So
I'm coming off a bye. I'm fresh.
You're the only guy that's talked about the opposing team for the following week at nauseum here. That's amazing. Yeah, Jimmy, I know that they have a good tight end. Komet's a good tight end. They have a good running game. The running game worries me a little bit because, like Gary said, it's not just Fields. It's the other two guys as well. I'm just worried that they're going to get the running game going. And that's what hurt the Eagles in their Washington loss.
And then, like Vahe was saying, it could be the trap game, the game before Dallas as well.
That could be the true trap game. Do any of you guys?
And they're on the road. It's probably going to be cold in Chicago.
Yeah, it will be.
Sure.
Yeah. Who did Fields get the 178 yards against?
I think it was Detroit. Was it Detroit? I know he had a game. It was like Detroit. He went off. I have him on fantasy. I think it was Detroit. It might have been
Detroit's really defensively been playing good.
I can't remember. He had a couple of them. Didn't he go over?
Yeah,
178. It might have been Detroit. I'm not sure.
178, almost 200 yards rush. And I'll tell you what, if he goes into the
they
second
lost
level,
that game too, I think.
Detroit, they did.
Detroit came back and won that game in the end.
But I got to tell you, Fields is one of those guys where if he gets out to the second level, he is going to be tough to grab. Well, not just that he's big, he's just fast. He's really very, very football fast. And I'll tell you, when I see him throw the football, they downplay his throwing ability. I think he's going to be a darn good throwing quarterback down the road, especially when he gets his, the one receiver back next year, and maybe some of the other guys that they can draft or get as free agents in the in the coming years. So yeah, I agree 100%. But Vahe, you're saying it's the spread's 9 right now?
Yes.
So when you think about it, so really it would be 12 when you think about it, because they're the visiting team. So that's saying a lot.
It is a lot, because the thing is that it's interesting. I was looking at the Vikings game, and I don't know who the Vikings playing. The line is only 4.
Well,
and I was kind of surprised at that. I thought that basically after that loss, they'll be like really energized, but the line is only 4.
That game may not be at Minnesota. Well, no, I think it might be. They played at Detroit last week.
It was
Yeah.
Miami. It was Miami. The game he had the 170.
That is amazing.
It was Miami. Then the next week he had a 147 against Detroit.
Yeah. So, and he's
So it was
fresh too. He has a whole week off. So I think the Eagles better be careful this week, you know?
Mhm.
And the Bears always play them tight, you know, very, very tough. So,
Like,
you know,
oh, this is it. The Vikings are playing the Colts at home, right? And the line is only -4. The Colts, I mean, they're 4-8
They're
and
at
1.
home. Wow.
Yeah, the Vikings at home, 10-3. They're playing against the Colts 4-8 and 1 with a rookie high school coach, and the line's only -4.
Right.
wow, it's pretty good.
I mean, I'm
That's
surprised.
it.
I
That's
was,
unbelievable.
that's
Yeah.
there must be something that nobody's saying because that's unreal. -4. I mean,
Yeah.
home team gets 3 anyway. So are you telling me
Yeah.
they're just only 1 point better than the Colts, and you're at
Yeah.
10-3?
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Yeah, I'll tell you, but this game here could be a real trap game because I think Matt Eberflus is their first time head coach. Was the I believe the offensive coordinator for Indianapolis the year before this. I don't think he's got a lot to work with. I think he's done a decent job with the team with what he has to work with. I think it'll be. I put it this way. I think it'll be it'll be a very interesting game because when you think about it, everybody in the league is saying that the Eagles are the top team in the NFL. So every team that plays them is up to play the game, you know, the best game that they could possibly play against the Eagles. So I think it's going to be tough. Before we go into our predictions for this coming week, let's just go over where we're at. To date here, I have 5 wins. Jimmy has 4. Vahe has 4. Will has 1. And
But
last week,
Will is challenging the whole the way we look at this thing.
well, you know it would be interesting if young Gary picks this week and he wins, and he's only in the thing for 1 week and he's tied with Will. Wouldn't that be amazing if that happens? But anyway, let's go over the predictions for last week. Jimmy had the Giants winning. That's all I'm going to say. He's a loser. Vahe, myself, and Will had the Eagles winning. Vahe was 31-10. Will was 34-17. I was 24-13. I guess the differential is in Vahe's favor because it's 21 points. Vahe, I think you're the winner here.
Yes, I am.
So Vahe, that puts you at 5, and you are tied with me for first place.
Are you sure? I thought I was going to be tied with Jimmy with 4.
I'm sorry, I changed it. You did have 3, you're now 4. So I have 4. I have 5. Jimmy has 3 or 4. I have 5. Jimmy has 4. Vahe has 4. Will has 1.
And the son-in-law is all the way back.
Right. And then we got and it's sealed a deal. Right.
He's not sealing any deals.
Yeah, no deals are being sealed. None are being sealed with him. And he already gave us a score. Besides battling Vahe and what the score differential was on the game last week.
7-0. You said 7-0.
Yeah, I don't want to talk. I said 34-17. All right, he did not give me a score. Okay, no, I didn't get a score yet from him, so I'll get one. So,
I think did he send one?
No, he was fighting with Vahe on the differential one last week. I thought he picked a game. No, I guess he didn't. Oh, no, yeah, no. 37-17.
Eagles 37, Bears
37-17. Yeah, I already got that. Vahe, since you won last week, you give me next. And don't worry about Will picking because he already picked.
Okay, so the Eagles 48.
What?
The Bears 10.
Woo! Jimmy, I'll go next.
Go ahead.
I'll say 38-10.
I'm going to go 32-18.
All right. And
weird score.
Gary Jr., I'll give you a shot at this.
I'm going 31-10.
30. All right. I was 38-10. Gary Jr. is 31-10. Okay.
We're all in agreement here.
Yeah, we are. But whenever
Nobody's
we're all in
picking
agreement, we end up being
picking
wrong.
the Bears.
No, I learned my lesson last week.
Plus,
it's
they're
a-
officially out of the playoffs anyway. I mean, they're not even like contending.
Who? The
They're
Bears?
out. They're Bears. Yeah, they're already officially out.
Oh, I didn't know that they were already officially out. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, there's like 3 teams that are officially out. Then one of them,
Oh,
Texas, the
okay.
other one.
Oh, Texans.
And you know who's the third one? You know
Who?
who's the third one? The
Jacksonville?
one? No, Jackson.
Yeah, Denver. Denver.
Denver, the guy,
Yeah.
the team that gave up 2 first rounds, 2
Yeah.
second rounds, plus $250 million.
Yeah, yeah. And a coach that's about to get fired. And new ownership. I mean,
I was the one who said that whole division was going to be at 500 or better.
oh, Jimmy, some of your predictions. I mean, Jimmy predicted that,
Sanders,
and he predicted Sanders not getting 1,000 yards this year.
I may be getting kicked off this podcast.
Oh my God. Oh my God, that was brutal. So
You know what? It's even worse. The networks, they picked the Denver to play Monday night, Friday,
Yeah.
Thursday night,
Yeah.
Sunday night. It was like all prime time, and then they suck.
They looked terrible. It was brutal watching those games. It was terrible, like you said. Why it was
yeah,
painful.
yeah. No, I agree 100%.
And like I said, they had like 3 or 4 primetime games right away.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
No.
unbelievable.
I agree 100%. Any last minute thoughts before we wrap this up?
Dallas, man, just go down to Dallas
Christmas
and kick.
Eve.
I'm sick and tired of everybody saying that Dallas is the best team to win the Super Bowl. Just go down there and kick their ass, and that will be the end of it.
I got to tell you, you know what's really going to stink? If the Eagles are 13-1 and we're getting ready for Christmas Eve and, we're going over people, relatives' houses for dinner. And if the Eagles get hammered on national TV,
I
that
don't
would
think
be-
so.
I don't
I
think
think they're
they're
gonna. I think they're gonna win, and they're gonna. If they win next Sunday and they win this Sunday, they're gonna clinch first place.
Yeah, they're going to clinch home field throughout.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 games will mean nothing.
That is.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, not having anything to play for?
That's a great point. Yeah.
I think they should play the Saints game because they want to. They
Oh.
need to beat the Saints
Oh,
so that
you
they can
have-
get a bigger, better pick.
Oh yeah, get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the number 5 pick. And I'm telling you, I'm gonna tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if Howie has something up his sleeve with that pick, getting future picks for it.
Oh, I don't think they're going to use that pick. I think he's going to trade
Yeah, I
it
think so
for
too.
2024 first rounder.
But I got to tell you, if one of those big time defensive interior linemen are available for him, and Joseph and Sue are not coming back, and you don't know if Cox is going to be there, it's going to be awfully tempting for them.
He's
So,
in a win-win situation where he wants to be, right?
Yeah.
He
yeah,
wants to
but
use the pick, he's going to use it. If he doesn't
yeah,
want to use
but
it,
but he could also be in a no-win situation with all these people that he's got to sign. So
it's
you
going
got
to
to
be tough.
look at it from that point. So any other last minute thoughts before we clean this
Back
up
to
here?
that, like for how he probably realized going into this season, he probably had this year circled as, to go all in with the contracts he had, with the salary cap room he had. So I'm sure he's got a plan in the back of his head. I mean, the team's going to look a lot different next year. But
Oh, it is. Oh,
But
no
when-
doubt.
look at the position they're in right now.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say this. You're right. They could almost go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl and have a completely different team next year. But the way he's doing it, is it possible that
Not on
Next-
the offensive side.
well,
There's nobody on the,
but they may have to almost completely regroup here. Well, on the offensive side, kind of, because Kelsey might not be here. You don't know how much longer Lane Johnson's going to be here. And Sanders, you don't know if Sanders is going to be here. So that's a big part of the offense right there. So the way he's doing it, no matter how good the Eagles do this year, are they going to have to take a step back and rebuild again for the future after this year?
especially
Because-
on the defensive side. Absolutely on the defensive
Well,
side.
really, yeah, but
Hopefully that's where they can put N'Kobe Dean, let him step right in next
Mhm.
year, and hopefully he can be,
Yep.
an impact player.
yeah,
And
but I
the
mean,
and the safety that went what's his name? The kid, the safety what got injured,
Blankenship.
Blankenship. I think that's another good one too. He was an undrafted free agent, right?
Yeah.
So between him and Kobe Dean, I think that a linebacker and a safety, I think,
And they're
they lucked out.
D-backs, and you got Bradbury, who's going to be 30 and a
That-
free agent, and Slay's going to be 33 next year.
But Slate's under contract, right?
Yeah, he is, but he's no spring
Bradbury's going to be
chicken.
gone,
Yeah, he's going-
He's going to be gone.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
agree.
The way, I mean, hearing all this now, it seems even less like the Eagles are even going to pick at 5. Just they have the pick, but I can just imagine them just trading back or some sort of thing where you recoup a lot of value, so you can kind of fill in where those gaps are. Because like you said, Armand, you're not going to be able to re-sign everybody, and you don't have to have another Super Bowl winning roster next year. Just build for the future and just have at least a competitive team that has room to grow.
I wouldn't be surprised if they trade their 5th pick, let's say stays 5th or 6th, to some mid first round pick and then get another 2nd rounder and a 3rd rounder.
That's what he does.
That's what's going to happen.
But
probably,
the other thing that scares me about this whole thing with Harry is that he has made so many good moves in the last year or two, but he's made other teams look really bad in the process. Look, the general manager from the Titans was already fired. And
no, I mean, he's not putting a gun to their head. I mean,
no, but I'm just saying that I think people are going to be more, general managers might be more leery dealing with him down the road, because you always hear the general manager say, we always want to make it a situation that's good for us and the team that we're dealing with. But Howie's been involved in situations where it has greatly benefited the Eagles and really hurt the team that they traded with. So that could be one thing that could be affecting him trying to make any deals for this coming year or the year after. So,
I mean, let's look at the Saints, for example. They traded with the Eagles to get Eagles' number 1 pick, which was like the 16th or the 17th.
And
right?
that was the safety, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even
And
know how
they
he's
thought
doing.
that Jameson Winston is going to come back, right? And they'll lead the team. And they have an excellent defense. All they need is basically start quarterback that basically to have a good record. And they thought they're going to win at least the NFC South, right?
Yeah.
Who thought that for whatever reason, Jameson staying on the sideline and they're going with that, makeup Dalton. Yes, Dalton. Yeah. And they're struggling. I mean,
they need
that
a
wasn't
quarterback,
the plan, right? That wasn't the plan.
They need a quarterback. So,
but why is Jameson Winston not playing? I thought that was supposed to be the
I think he has
guy.
fractures in his back still.
Oh, he does. I didn't know that.
That's what sidelined him in the very beginning of the season. I don't know what his level is or what the inner workings of the team of why they have James out. I mean, obviously they're not competing, so maybe they're just trying to protect they're just trying to protect what they have for next year.
The same thing happened with Miami. Remember, they traded the 1st round with Miami, and Miami thought they were going to be really good with Tua, and he didn't do well the first year, and the Eagles ended up getting a really good 1st round.
Yeah.
It was a top 12, top 13, something like that with Miami. Remember, guys, that?
Yeah, I still think Tua is going to be a really good quarterback with what he has to work with. They have a lot of offensive speed. They're going to be tough in the playoffs. But my sleeper team right now is Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati.
Oh, I think Cincinnati is going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I think they match up well with Kansas City.
Yeah,
and they beat them last year in the AFC Championship game, and they beat them again this year.
Yeah,
yes, they're the Burrows is the first player to beat Mahomes 3 times in a row.
3 times, yeah. And what are they, 9-4? And they had a horrible start.
Tie with Baltimore. Yeah, they were like 1-3 to begin, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you, don't think that Burrow's not in the MVP conversation.
He's
good.
up there now.
They got 4 more games.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's playing the way he's been playing the last couple of weeks, he could be the guy. I just know that, what he wears to the games, the outfits, that's a different story. He will not be the MVP in that department. But as far as there's a guy that's cool, calm, collective. He doesn't have some of the athletic ability that Hurts has, but he reminds me of a young Joe Montana. He really does, So
he's incredible at quarterback.
Oh, he is. Jimmy, I got to ask you this before we get off the podcast here. You knew who Brian Bosworth was, right? The Boss?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You told me about him back in the day.
Will never heard of him. And he goes, who is he? And he said, my dad doesn't even know
Did he play for Seattle or he played for Oakland?
I mean, he was.
I remember being a kid. I swear to God, it's a true story. I was probably 8, 9 years old. And you were telling me that was the guy that Bo Jackson ran over.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's when he was with Seattle. Yeah. But in college, he was a beast. and fast as all
I
hell.
remember just from the pros. I never heard of him until you told me that.
Oh
story.
my God! At Oklahoma, put his highlights on in college. He was amazing. Brian DeBoz. And then look at his haircut and everything.
Yeah,
All the
the
kids went
funky
around.
haircut,
He looked
yeah.
like a wrestler. He looked like a wrestler.
He
Right?
was,
Yeah, exactly.
He was amazing. He looked like a lifeguard, a bodybuilder lifeguard, and he just had everything going for him. I mean, he had the entire campus, but he just screwed himself by making some really stupid decisions at the end of his college career, and it ended with him getting caught for doing PEDs. So he was suspended for the last bowl game. I think it was the Orange Bowl game, and then he had one more year of eligibility. And back then they had a supplemental draft. He didn't get drafted with the regular draft, but he was able to go through a supplemental draft, and that's how Seattle got him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's really a shame because he had a couple of really solid years with Seattle, but what people didn't know was that I remember hearing this at the very end, which was maybe after his second year, the doctor said that he had the shoulders of an 85-year-old. That's how bad his shoulders were. And he had to retire. And I think he had a metal plate and put one of his shoulders, and he still has problems with them. So, I mean, I think he left it all on the field when he was at Oklahoma, and they won a national championship. They beat Penn State in '85, but Will never heard of him, and he thought I was crazy when I brought him up. And I said, I'm bringing it up at the podcast. I will assure you that they all knew who he was. So
No, I knew him because you look like a wrestler. You look like a guy from WrestleMania.
I'm telling you, I
that's
knew
why-
him from you.
Well, he was like the Deion Sanders of college football, where he had the swag and everybody knew him and he also used to write the names of the coaches that he hated on his cleats. Fred
really?
Akers for Texas, and he wrote Akers upside down on the cleat. Then I
Sounds
think
like
he
he was
wrote
like-
something with the commissioner's name.
He was like that guy Vladimir from the program. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Remember that movie, The Program?
Oh, yeah. But I got to tell you, you got to look at his highlights, his Oklahoma highlights. He was an amazing football player. He really was. All right, let's wrap this up. We've been on about an hour. So another one in the books. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you next week. See
Go
ya.
Birds.
All
See you
right.
guys.
See you guys later.
Yeah.